Hey, it's Ann from NanLovesFood. Today we are doing the March prep and plan with me. It is a real life weeknight here, and today I've got a lot of stuff to do. So we gotta get this prepped and done so our weeknights can be super duper easy. Tonight we're doing 3 really great meals. Very excited to give these a try. We have a pesto polenta with thyme roasted mushrooms and chickpeas. Yum, and that comes with a piece of creamy burrata on top. Ooh, so excited about that one. We're also doing a minestrone soup, or minestrone, depending on where you're from and how you pronounce things. And then finally, we are doing a stroganoff. So we are just gonna get this stuff prepped and ready, so we've got it ready to go on a weekday, so dinner can be easy and not stressful, which is how I like to live my life. So let's get started. Step number 1 is to thaw our meat. I've already done that. It is in the fridge and we are ready to go. So the recipe calls for a boneless ribeye for our stroganoff, but I've got chuck roast in my freezer, so that's what I'm gonna use. I'm just gonna use it the same way. So now that we have our meat thawed, I'm gonna go ahead and get some water boiling here. When I make soup that I'm gonna reheat later that has pasta or rice or potatoes or anything that can kind of disintegrate if it gets reheated too many times, I always make that starchy item on the side. So with the minestrone, we are not having that tonight, we're having that tomorrow night. So I'm gonna take this ditalini pasta and go ahead and cook it. And then it'll be cooked and we'll just throw it in as we eat bowls of soup. I'm actually gonna do the same with the cannellini beans, but for a different reason. We are using a canned bean, so there's no cooking or preparation that has to be done here, but my husband does not like beans in his soup or anywhere else for that matter, so I'm gonna put the beans on the side. So when I go to make his bowl, I'm just gonna scoop some pasta in it. When I go to make my bowl, I'm gonna put some pasta and beans in it. So it'll be super easy to go. The other thing that is great about that is, I don't know about you, but I have a tendency to make way too much soup, like way too much. And soup freezes beautifully if you do not have things like pasta in it. So by putting the pasta on the side, I'm gonna safeguard myself for the future. And if I do end up needing to freeze some of the soup because we're not gonna eat it all in one week, I won't have to deal with the freeze and unfreeze of pasta in a lot of liquid, which can turn out not so great. So since our water is boiling, we're gonna go ahead and get started with our veggie prep. Today we are getting by with a little help from our store. Went ahead and got this mirepoix mix from Trader Joe's. If you've been around for a little while, you know this is one of my absolute favorite things. So this just saved me having to dice celery, carrots, and onions, which are the base of the minestrone soup. So this piece is done, which makes my veg prep super duper easy. The mushrooms, we're gonna use this mushroom sampler pack that I got from Costco. This is so cool because you get a bunch of different mushrooms in the same package, which especially for a roasting situation is gonna be so, so nice. But aren't those just beautiful? So I have that, and then I also grabbed some shiitakes from the store. I've got some spinach. So for the polenta, we really just need to prepare some garlic and some kale. So I have our kale here, and the way I like to prepare kale is to just put it in my salad spinner full of water. It's gonna allow any of the dirt to fall off into the water, which means I don't have to work too hard to get the dirt off of there. So I'm just gonna pick this kale off the stalk. We're gonna zhuzh it all around there, make sure it gets all clean. And then once I'm done, I will just lift out this colander, use it as a colander, dump the water, and then I can spin it dry. So we're really using our salad spinner for all the purposes. I love this salad spinner. I'll make sure to link it in the description box below for you. All right, now our kale is all destemmed, so I'm just gonna let it soak here in this cold water while I get the rest of my veg prepped. All right, we're gonna get officially started on our kale and polenta situation. That is actually dinner tonight, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this going on a sheet pan. Now, if I weren't gonna have it tonight, I would just go ahead and get all the ingredients ready and put it in the fridge. But this should be pretty quick prep. We're just gonna get all of our ingredients on this sheet pan. So this calls for wild mushrooms, chickpeas, thyme, garlic, salt and pepper, and then some crushed red pepper flakes. So I'm gonna put that all on this sheet pan. We do actually need to drain the chickpeas, so I'm gonna get that part started, and then we'll get that garlic smashed so we can get this in the oven. I don't want my life to be any harder than it needs to be, so I'm gonna use this already peeled garlic. And so smashing it, you just take your knife, hit it with the palm of your hand, and we'll have our smashed garlic ready to go. I'm gonna throw the shiitakes on the sheet pan with my garlic, and I'm just gonna break these mushrooms down into bite-sized pieces. They're actually a little bit bigger than bite-sized because the mushrooms are gonna shrink in the oven. So they'll be bite-sized by the time we get to them. All right, the water on the stove behind me is boiling, so I'm gonna go ahead and put in our ditalini and get that started. So I am gonna go ahead and set a timer on my pasta because I'm gonna be doing other things and I don't wanna get distracted and forget about it and have it be overcooked. I'm actually gonna cook it a little under because I'm gonna be heating it back up in the soup and I don't want it to get too mushy. I want it to have some texture when I go to eat it. All right, mushrooms are all chopped, so I'm gonna go ahead and add my chickpeas to my tray. All right, so I have our kale, mushrooms, chickpeas, and garlic on here. I did have to start another tray because things got a little too full. The recipe calls for fresh thyme, which, by the way, all the recipes we're preparing today will be in the description box below. We're not gonna use fresh thyme, we're gonna use this Trader Joe's Green Goddess seasoning blend. So we're just gonna season this up, a little bit of crushed red pepper, and we're gonna toss it all with a little bit of extra virgin olive oil. So I just realized that this recipe doesn't call for kale. I just had it in my head that it did. I think the kale's gonna be delicious in there. I think it's a necessary addition, to be honest. That's the green vegetable of the meal. So anywho, I guess I bought the kale for the minestrone, but we'll use that spinach. So, oops, happy accident, maybe? We'll see. The instructions are a little unclear in the recipe as it is written. It talks about preheating your oven to 325, but then you actually bake at 475. So I don't really know what that's about, but I just upped my oven to 475 so I could get this started. But I am so excited to eat this for dinner. I think it's gonna be so delicious. Look at that. Oh yeah. Next up, we're just gonna slice up an onion for the stroganoff. The recipe for minestrone calls for butternut squash. I am not a fan, so I'm just leaving that out. If you are looking to do butternut squash, a lot of stores sell it already like cubed up and ready to go. So if you're looking for weeknights, that's what I would do. So we've got our onion sliced and ready, easy enough. Our pasta just finished up. And that's awesome because I'm gonna use this pot again for my grits, my polenta. So I'm just gonna let this cool a bit before I go store it in the fridge. I am throwing our beautiful mushrooms and kale and chickpeas in the oven now. They're gonna roast for about 25 minutes. I'm gonna keep checking on them so I can flip them throughout the process, but they should be done in half an hour or so. Okay. Step 3 of our prep was to get the mushrooms roasting. If you're not doing that until a later meal, I would just set those in the fridge. I would wait to toss them in the herbs and olive oil until you're gonna cook them. But you could store all of that in the fridge for several days and they'd be just fine. All right, it is time to get our soup started here using the trusty old instant braiser. This is getting heated up, and while that is happening, I'm gonna go ahead and chop some garlic here. I just realized I forgot to do that part. One of the reasons the soup is gonna be so good is because we're not gonna eat it today. Anytime you've had a tomato-based soup or lasagna or marinara or bolognese, something like that, that is sat in the fridge overnight, it's amazing how much better it gets. And this soup is gonna have that advantage because we prepped it ahead of time. And that advantage is gonna make it so that dinner tomorrow night when we have the soup takes me no time at all. And since we're using our cheap veg, we can just get this soup going. So I am all over the place today. My brain is not working very well. But you can still do meal prep, even if you're a little discombobulated. I forgot that this soup has a pancetta base. I have some prosciutto left over from a party. So I'm just gonna use this. I should be sauteing it in this pan, but since I forgot, I'm just gonna hit it on the stovetop real fast. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. One of the reasons I chose to do these meals together is that both the minestrone and the mushrooms call for pesto. Now, during happier times when the garden is in bloom, I grow my own basil and I make my own pesto from that. And I will grow excessively too much basil on purpose and freeze the basil for cold winter days like this. Unfortunately, I've gone through my stash too early and we are a ways from getting fresh basil out of the garden. So we're gonna use this Rayo's pesto from a jar. I'm sure it'll be fine, especially in this application, because it's not gonna be like the only thing we taste, but I do think it'll add a lot to this soup. Another tip for you, this recipe calls for some dry white wine. You'll notice that this is just a half bottle. I purchase, whenever Costco has their like advent calendar, their wine advent calendar, things like that, I always buy one. And it is awesome for times like this because this is probably 2 glasses of wine and I will use at least 1 glass in this soup, and then I can have a glass with dinner and I don't have to worry about, maybe it's not my favorite wine of all time to sit and drink. I can just use it for what it's intended and don't have to worry about wasting any. You can also freeze wine if you're not going to use it right away, but I prefer just not to have to think about it that much. So these half bottles, this is a great way to go. All right, so the final step of meal prep for the week is to just get our meat sliced up for our stroganoff. I'm gonna go ahead and use the mushrooms from our kale chickpea situation. I'm just gonna put that in my stroganoff. My husband doesn't like mushrooms, so I'm just gonna leave that for me and everybody will be happy. So because I am having this dinner tonight, the kale and mushroom situation, I'm eating that. So I'm gonna go ahead and get some grits ready. These are old-fashioned grits. You can buy the instant ones. Some people will tell you that it makes a difference, old-fashioned versus instant. I don't think there's a huge difference, but that's just me. Okay, so I have 4 cups of water going. I'm gonna put a cup of grits in there. Grits and polenta are very similar. The recipe actually calls for polenta, but you know, they're close enough. It's just a difference in grind, like how finely the corn is ground. So it doesn't make a big difference to me. I usually have grits on hand. All right, so I'm just gonna take this piece of meat and cut it up into bite-sized pieces. And I'm just gonna store the raw meat in the container that we're storing the onions in. They're all gonna get cooked together. All right, there we go. We're ready for our stroganoff. So believe it or not, that was it. I was in the kitchen for right around an hour and we got a ton accomplished. We have dinner prepped, we've got dinner cooked for tonight. We have minestrone soup. It'll probably be 2 dinners if we're being honest. That should be plenty of soup for us for 2 nights. Once it's time to cook that, I'm just gonna throw in the bag of spinach, the pesto. We will stir in the pasta and beans if we want it, and then sprinkle with Parmesan cheese. That will be such a good, hearty, delicious dinner. We have our meat ready for our stroganoff, ready to go. Oh, and don't forget, we're gonna throw that pancetta in the soup too, yum. We've got our pasta right here, packed and ready to go. So as soon as those grits are ready, we will be ready to eat dinner here. But yeah, that was it. So even when you're having like a totally scatterbrained time, you can still meal prep and things can go wrong and it'll be fine. Like it's just gonna be fine, it's just food. People take this stuff way too seriously. If you're feeding your family, you're doing great. That's enough. And if you want to follow this meal plan, I will have all of the recipes for these meals linked below, as well as a step-by-step guide if you want to make this exact menu for your family. I will give you every step I followed to make sure that I got everything done that needed to be done, even though I was a little all over the place today. And you'll have delicious, nourishing meals on the table on weeknights that'll just take a few minutes to throw together. If you go to nanlovesfood.com/meal prep, you can get the whole printable that will show you every step by step of how to make this exact menu for your family, along with a shopping list, links to the recipes, and instructions on what to do. So I hope you found this helpful. This is the way I like to eat. I love to eat a ton of vegetables. I love to have super easy meals, but these meals feel legitimate. This is not phoning it in here. This is like real good food, which after a long, hard work day, I need that in my life. You know what I mean? Like, life's too short to eat bad food. So I hope you found this helpful. If you would, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and if you're not already subscribed, please do so. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I'll see you in the next one.